You're listening to Mammal Watching with Charles Foley and Jon Hall. You can find other episodes at mammalwatching.com/podcast.
Welcome to the Mammal Watching podcast with me, Jon Hall, in the UK.
And me, Charles Foley, in Minneapolis. How are you, John?
I am okay, Charles. I am in the UK for a few days. And you know it's the UK because A, it hasn't stopped raining. And B, the storms have had names this week. Yesterday was Storm Dudley and tomorrow is Storm Eunice. And I don't know why they're giving me these such kind of lame names to these storms, but yeah, that's just the UK in February. So let's talk about something else. You've just come back from Tanzania.
Yes, I have indeed. Yes, and it was very good to get back there. And I had a very good time, and I saw some special sights. I went to Ndutu, the Ndutu Safari Lodge, which is one of the most amazing places on the planet for me. And the wildebeest migration was there, and they were calving. And I know that many mammal watchers, they often go for the rarer things or the numbers, etc. But I have to admit, the wildebeest migration in the Serengeti Plains is something that any person who's interested in either mammal watching or just nature generally simply has to see. It's an amazing sight. But that was not the highlight of my trip. The highlight was me seeing a new large mammal species, which, given the fact that I've lived in Tanzania over 30 years, doesn't happen very often. And not just any old mammal species. This is one of my nemesis mammal species, the Abbott's duiker. So the Abbott's duiker, it's one of the largest duikers. It's up there with the gentics and the yellowback duiker, and very difficult to see. It's endemic to Tanzania. It's really found only on Mount Kilimanjaro, the Udzungwa Mountains, and Mount Rungwe. And it's a forest duiker. It's shy, occurs in low numbers, and basically very, very difficult animal to find. So you can imagine my surprise when several months back, I saw a photograph of an Abbott's duiker, handheld photograph taken by a young Tanzanian guide called Shaban Umputa. And he had posted this on the East African mammal watching site on Facebook. So I reached out to him and said, where on earth did you see this thing? And he said, South Kilimanjaro. So when I was in Tanzania, I reached out to Shaban and said, could you try and take me to see it? He said, yeah, let's do it. So took a weekend off, and we went to the Machame area on the south slopes of the mountain. We overnighted in a small hotel over there and then took off very early in the morning. And it's a 10-kilometer walk straight uphill. So we did that. And then we waited close to the area around the ranger post. And we waited for 1 hour, and then 2 hours, and then 3 hours. And then the heavens opened, and it just started tipping down with rain. And I thought, okay, thunder all around.
Oh, the stress is already just listening. Yeah.
Yes, I thought, okay, this isn't going to happen. But then the thunder stopped, the rain started stopping, the mist cleared. And all of a sudden I looked up, and there was an Abbott's duiker walking into the enclosure in front of me about 30 yards away. Just astonishing. And it's a beautiful animal. It's a sort of a dark black purplish color with a red crest. And this animal just wandered around feeding on leaves for about 20, 25 minutes. And I was able to get some really good photographs of it, got some fantastic views. And then it went off. So I was just gobsmacked. This is an animal I'd been looking for 32 years. And I actually lived on Kilimanjaro. I worked there with a colleague of mine, John Grimshaw, for a year. And the local poacher actually took us to show us where the Abbott's duiker was found. And we saw the prints, etc. And for some inexplicable reason, I never actually made an effort to sit up and wait for it and to see it. So I've been kicking myself for the last 30 years, and now finally I managed to see it. So what I'm going to do, John, is I will write up a short trip report about it, and I will post Shaban's contact details on there. And if people want to go and try to find it, you can reach out to him, and he is in touch with the rangers and monitoring what's happening to the animal. So he should be able to hopefully take people up there to see it.
I'm so happy for you. I mean, I remember the first time I met you was 2011. I came to stay in Tanzania for a weekend, and we went to look for the Abbott's Duiker. So it's been on my radar ever since that, because obviously we didn't see it. But I remember you talking in sort of breathless tones about how wonderful this duiker was and how rare. And you thought we'd found a place where we might see it, but we didn't. We looked, and so that's so great to have found it after so long. That must be one of the most satisfying sightings you've ever had, I imagine.
Yeah, it really is, and particularly, as I said, just a nemesis animal.
Yeah,
an animal that you think, okay, I should have seen. I've tried to see it so many times. It's always eluded me, and there were just never any really good options as to where to go and see it. And all of a sudden, it just materialized. So, seize the day.
Tanzania obviously misses you. She's tempting you home, so giving you these little gifts when you come back. Yeah, well, congratulations. I'm really pleased for you.
Thanks, John.
Charles and I are very pleased today to be joined by Regina Ribeiro from her home in Belo Horizonte in Brazil. Regina is a well-known name from the mammal watching website because so many Brazil trips have her as the main guide. I first met her in 2006 during my first trip to Brazil, which was an absolutely stunning trip, largely because of all the help I got from Regina. She has continued to go from strength to strength and has, I think, become Brazil's most famous mammal guide. And a number of people on this podcast have recently traveled with her, including Alex Mayer, who was with her a few months ago, and Cheryl Antonucci, who just came back from a really great trip chasing Brazil's primates with Regina. Welcome to the podcast, Regina.
Okay, thank you, John, for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, Regina, it's very good to meet you. Regina, can you start out by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I am a Brazilian wildlife guide, and I live in Belo Horizonte, Southeast Brazil, and I've been guiding for 22 years. And I also plan trips focus on mammals, but also general nature tours and photography.
And how did you become a guide?
In 1991, I started working for an agency in Belo Horizonte called Focus Tours, and they were a pioneer agency for wildlife tours in Brazil. And in 1998, I had an offer from them to start a training to become one of their naturalist guides. And I already had a guide license, but I never used to. So that's when I started traveling with their guides to different areas in Brazil and getting to know the natural areas, the animals. And in addition to that, I took a training in Costa Rica through friends that there was an workshop for guides, and I was the foreigner guide invited. And I spent like 3 months in Costa Rica, and I did some volunteer work there, and I got to travel to some of the natural areas and meet up some of the top guides. And that experience in Costa Rica guided my professional guiding life, forever.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's such a great country, as is Brazil. But so when you were a kid, did you grow up watching wildlife?
No. But I was always interested in travel and nature. And I think my experience with mammals came after I started guiding.
And what sort of proportion of your trips are, let's say, specifically mammal oriented? Is it the majority of them? Is it just a few of them? How does it work?
I think it's the majority of them. Mm-hmm. Okay. When I started my training for guiding, my studies were all focused on birds.
Mhm.
Okay, and but a lot of my training took place in the Pantanal, and the Pantanal has, such a great diversity of mammals, and you'd see mammals like ocelot and tapirs and giant otters and jaguars and so many of them that it raised my interest in watching them, more, and study and learn more about mammals.
In East Africa, well, across most of Africa, of course, they've got the big five. It's elephant, rhino, lion, leopard, African buffalo. Are there certain species which most wildlife tourists to Brazil come to see?
Jaguar is one of them. If you visit the Pantanal, and tapir, and giant otters, and the maned wolf, and the giant armadillo. I think that's, giant armadillo, of course, is much more difficult to see it, but that's what people want to.
Should come up with a sort of name for the Brazilian five.
Yeah. I think that's correct. No, giant anteater. Giant anteater. That's
yes.
Instead of the giant armadillo.
All the giants,
but anyway,
otters, anteaters, armadillos.
Yeah.
They're a much more impressive big five than the African big five, in my opinion.
Yes.
Much less cliched and much cooler, much more interesting.
And do you get many people who are the real hardcore mammal watchers who come and say, show me every last bat and rodent, and just going for the numbers?
I used to. Okay, so let's say when I started doing mammal trips, one of the people that I met was Richard Webb. This was in 2002. And then in 2004, Richard brought the first jaguar group that was from Wild Wings. And it was like a mammal group, but the focus, one of the animals in special were the jaguar in the Pantanal. And I guided many years for them. And I would say that the clients of Wild Wings are all very hardcore mammal watchers. And I just follow the path of mammals, working for many years with them. And yes, now people are very focused. For example, primates like Cheryl, now the last trip we did. It can be like general mammal watchers, but also there is a tendency now to be much more focused on certain species.
Right.
That is my experience.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Richard, because he deserves a lot of credit, from me at least, for really putting Brazil or the Pantanal on the map, because it was him and I guess you together who really kind of ironed out the classic Pantanal route and where to see all the species. And I exactly copied his itinerary the first time I went. But when he started, jaguars was still thought of, I think, as very hard to see. So when did that change?
I would say, Jon, that late in the 90s, looking for jaguars in the Pantanal was more along the roads, okay? And especially with the Focus Tours, the agency, Douglas Trent was one of the pioneers, for looking for jaguars in the Pantanal. Right. And we used to look for them around the Jaguar Ecological Reserve, but also as looking for jaguars on the roads are much more difficult. Mm-hmm. So when Richard came to the Pantanal, we were able to find jaguars. I think we saw on the road maybe 2 or 3. Yeah. And then I heard from other people, especially fishermen, how easy it was to see jaguars along the Cuiabá River. Right. And so I took him there and we saw jaguars, and I started taking other groups, and then so it was much easier to find there than along the road itself. So in 2004, I had the first wide wings group for jaguars, and other fewer guides, local guides were also taking people to the river to see jaguars. But I would say from 2006 or 2007, that's when the jaguar watching in the northern Pantanal really picked up.
Yeah, and it's now huge business. So it's
Now
largely
it's,
because of you and Richard, I would say.
Yes.
It's fabulous.
How big a business is it in pre-COVID days? How many people would go to the area in that season specifically to try and find jaguars? Do you have any idea?
No, I don't have this information, but based on my experience with other years, 2020, very, very few. I wasn't there. I was almost 2 years without being in the Pantanal, due to COVID, and also I was traveling to different areas. In this year, I was there in July, and July, August, and September, especially August and September, it's a pretty busy season where you could see maybe 25 boats and watching one jaguar. It can be even more. And this year was much, much less boats than in the, before COVID.
So, and in the pre-COVID times, what's the most number of boats you've seen around a jaguar? How many does it get
I
to?
think about 30 boats.
Wow. Yeah, when I went there, I was the only boat on the river. So that really has changed.
Yes.
But it's good for the jaguars, right?
Yeah, when we got started, there was only our boats. There was nobody else.
Right.
And we didn't have, now all the boats, they have radio communication. So there are more jaguar sightings now because there are more boats looking for jaguars.
Yeah.
But when we were there from 2004 until I think radios on the boats were around 2010, I never missed a jaguar in my trips, in the wild wings trips specifically, looking for jaguars, right? And with no radios. So some days, some trips we'd see only one jaguar, but some other trips we'd see like 7. And now sometimes you see more than 7, 8 jaguars in one morning.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Isn't it?
So,
And that all started up just, so literally that's been about 16 years and this entire industry started up. It'd be fascinating to actually figure out how much money is now going into that local economy just because of that one species.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also it's not only about jaguars at Porto Jofre, there is a great diversity of mammals, so it's a wonderful place to see giant otters as well, and monkeys. I mean, that is a lot of birds. I mean, that is a lot to be seen there.
So, and Regina, do you have a sort of favorite group of mammals that you like to find?
For me, it's always difficult to say which is my favorite animal or the favorite group, but I love primates. And I've been doing primate trips since 2010. That was the first time that I designed and I guided a primate trip.
So Regina, a question we have to ask you. What is it like being a female guide in such a male-dominated industry?
Well, when I started guiding, ecotourism, birding, and wildlife watching were in its first steps in Brazil. And very male guides used to do this. And I was a pioneer woman doing this kind of work. And my experience has always been positive. And I did wonderful partnerships. And I had the support and the guidance of men. Of course, in some occasions, I had run into sex discrimination when both the drivers or car drivers, they would not easily accept orders from women. But this kind of situation, together with my personality, helped me to gain more strength to do my job and also to be respected.
That's really, really good to hear. Do you think there are any advantages in you being one of the only women guiding in Brazil?
I think because I was a pioneer, maybe I was an inspiration to other women.
Yeah.
Now, as I had inspiration also looking at other women doing what I do.
You're a path breaker, a groundbreaker.
Now, guiding, it's a tough job. I don't think most people actually realize just how tough guiding is, because you are looking for wildlife, which obviously are in the wild, and there's no guarantee that you're going to see them. And it means that you need a lot of patience to try and find the animals. And then you've got a whole bunch of impatient clients who really want to sort of find these animals, etc. How do you deal with that? How do you sort of combine the patience needed to find the animals versus the patience needed to look after the clients?
Well, that is true. And it's very hard to combine because I think dealing with people, it's more demanding. And I think animals are much more predictable than people in terms of behavior, right? And I think to be a guide, you also have to like people.
That's why I suspect Jon and I would probably make terrible guides. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, and I've taken trips with guides who've been absolutely wonderful at finding wildlife, but it's immediately apparent they cannot stand to be around other humans, and it makes things very tense. So you have a rare blend, Regina, in being able to deal with all the world's mammals, not just the furry four-legged ones. Now, you said, 22 years of guiding? I'm sure you've had many extraordinary encounters with wildlife, but could you share one or two of your favorites?
Yes, I have had many remarkable encounters, but I think it's worth it to mention, Jon, that the 2021 in the Pantanal, after the 2020 fires that happened there. And so last year was an incredible year to observe jaguars, especially females with cubs. So I got a chance to see, to have sightings of the mother with the cubs swimming across the rivers, or nursing, teaching how to hunt, behavior, and that I, in 20 years or in 22 years, I never had a chance to see it before. And nursing was one of them.
Oh, it sounds wonderful. And is that quality of all the behavior and the sightings, is that somehow linked to the fires, do you think?
I for sure, the fires changed the behavior changed the dynamics. I think there was 11 females with cubs that were observed during the season of 2021. Okay. And so these females, at least 4 or 5 of them that we were watching in very close range. I even saw one female walking along the beach. She was hunting. And then 5 minutes later, when you could see one female crossing the river, another one coming. And one thing that was very, very interesting as well, one of these females, she had the cubs hidden someplace along the riverbank. And so we were following her. But we knew that the cubs were there because we saw the day earlier, late in the day. So we suspected that the cubs were still there. So she was walking along the bank, and there was the giant otters campsite, that the giant otters were using a lot, this area. So when the jaguar was crossing, the jaguar started rolling on the ground and rubbing the face, on rubbing her face and rubbing the back. And she did that for quite a while, and then she left. So I thought, oh, that would be interesting if the giant otters come and see how they behave. So shortly after that, the otters came, and they just went crazy. They were very agitated, and they were vocalizing very loud, and they were remarking territory. And they did that for a short time as well. They left, and for the entire season that I was there, the campsite was empty.
Has anyone done any studies to see to monitor what the density of jaguars is and how the number has increased?
Yes, there are. The Panthera, the organization Panthera, they do studies with jaguars in the Pantanal, for many years. And also we have this jaguar identification project, which is citizen science. And, they did the 2021 report for jaguars with very, very interesting information. For example, the number of sightings during the year was like 600, more than 600 sightings. And also there was about the information they got about 99 individuals that were observed during the season of 2021 in the Pantanal. And 36 of these jaguars were new for the area.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
So I think the number of individuals that have been recorded for the area of Porto Jofre is now around, that's what I remember, 260, something like that.
And how big an area is Porto Jofre in square kilometers? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't remember. Because it's a big area. We go looking for jaguars, for example, in the state park of Encontro das Águas, but also on the outside of the state park, along the river, the Cuiabá, and also its tributaries. But I think at Jofre, if I remember, it's about 8 individuals per 100 square kilometer.
Oh, that's high. Maybe what we could do is put a link to that report on the website, so people who are interested could actually read some of those figures. And obviously, traveling around Brazil for 22 years, guiding people, one or two things must have gone wrong at some time.
Yes, there was many adventures. But one of them, there was at the very beginning when I start guiding the Pantanal around 2005, we had a big group, about 20 people, and we were 3 guides. And we were driving to Porto Jofre. We were caught by a storm, and we were in a safari truck, and it was a tremendous storm with lightning, and it was a very heavy rain. So we all moved to the minibus that was the luggage minibus, but they were following us to give support, in case we needed something. So we all had to fit in the minibus, the luggage and us. And the truck disappeared. He was following us and then he disappeared. So I said, oh my God, what happened to the truck? So I got a ride with a car that was passing by. And when I went into the car, I realized that the driver was totally drunk. And that was scary. But at least we didn't have to drive for too long to meet the truck. And so by the time I met the truck, the driver had already fixed the truck, and we continued our journey. And about 15 kilometers before we arrived in Joffre, that's one of the most complicated areas to drive because it's very muddy, and also the quality of the bridges.
Yeah, the bridges are shocking, aren't they? Yeah.
Are really bad. So it's getting better, and the bridges have been replaced, but at that time was the worst bridges were in that area. So when we were crossing one of the bridges, the board of the bridge just went down, and so the front wheel of the bus got stuck in a hole. So we couldn't go anywhere. So the driver opened the door, and there was no board. So he had to go and leave the bus through one of the windows. And he got a piece of wood and he just put it there. And there was a very complicated situation to take everyone that was in the bus, cross the bridge and wait along the road. And so, I still remember pieces of how people were like, how we were nervous and worried because there were no cars. The Transpantaneira at that time was like very few traffic, especially from Pichain area where we drove to Porto Joffre. The owner of the Hotel Joffre where we were staying, he guessed that something was wrong because we were already late and we didn't arrive. So he sent the truck and that's how we were able to get out from the bridge. But all these 15 kilometers, we were kind of driving, passing this terrible bridge and sliding from one side to another on the road until we get to the hotel. That was about 10 p.m. And so the next few days that all people were talking about, because then, everybody thought it was fun. But the funniest thing is 10 years later, I had one guest in one of my groups that had been on this trip. And he came back to the Pantanal to try the jaguars again, because in that trip, we spent only one day in the river and we didn't see them. So, and then he told me that was the most scary thing that he was on. And he didn't think that we were going to survive on that journey.
Wow. And maybe just to put some extra color about those bridges. So when I went along that road in 2006, the bridges, they're all just planks. And several planks on every bridge were broken. And some bridges, it felt like there were more holes than planks to get across them. And I would sort of hold my breath every time we drove over them, waiting for a crunch, which luckily never came. But I'm very glad I hadn't heard that story before I took that trip. I'd have been a nervous wreck.
Yeah, it was kind of scary. With Richard Webb once, with Wild Wings, the truck also went into a hole, the only hole that was in the bridge, actually. And the car just turned a little bit to the left. But, fortunately, nothing happened. But we learned after a big rain in the Pantanal, you never get out. You need to wait for the roads to dry a little bit, because otherwise, it's you can get stuck and it can be very, very complicated.
Just 20 years ago, it was thought very, very hard to see jaguars, and look how that's changed. The first time I traveled, I spoke to you about giant armadillos, and then they were thought to be almost impossible. And now that has changed to an extent. So Brazil is slowly giving up its mammal secrets. what species do you think will be next? Are there some still impossible ones like bush dogs that you think may be on the cards for people to see?
I'd love to have a reliable sighting for a reliable place to try the bush dogs, but so far I don't. But I think for wildcats, maybe margay and oncillas.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I would say so. You know, I'm starting to do some research, and so I may come out with some news soon. I know they are still difficult, but I think we may get a chance to have more of reliable places where we can try to find them.
Oh, that's exciting.
And just for our listeners, margays and oncillas are small spotted cats. They look like miniature jaguars or ocelots.
Yeah, that's very exciting because I'm not aware of any reliable sites for those in any country, and they both have quite big distributions, but they remain things you may bump into, but you can't predict with any certainty. So, cool. All right. I didn't know about this. It's very exciting.
So, Regina, this has been fascinating. Is there anything else that you would like to share?
I know mammal watching can be very challenging, and I was thinking that birding, in a way it's easier because depending on the sites you go, the place you go, you can see like hundreds of birds in one day and no mammals. And but I think mammals, it's much more challenging because it's a different approach. And but it's my passion, and I love planning the trips. Sometimes a lot of times it happened that I felt discouraged to keep guiding, due to the country economy, and other problems we had, like the yellow fever outbreak, and many things that happened in the past that a lot of groups were canceled. But as soon as I get a request that, okay, this is this species that I want to see it. So for me, it's always like a new thing. So I start all over again. And I get so excited about doing the research where I can see it, how it's going to be the logistic. So, I just love guiding, and I love doing what I do.
Yeah, it's the power of the challenge and the quest, isn't it?
Yes.
Let's try and find something new. Super.
Exactly. And that's why we love you, Regina, too, because it's always great to travel with you. Every mammal watcher who has done will agree, I know.
Well, Regina, thank you so much for sharing your stories with us. One day I look very much forward to going to Brazil and perhaps doing a trip with you. It sounds like there's huge numbers of great mammals over there that I still need to see. So thank you. Okay,
you are welcome.
And thank you from me too. And it's lovely to see you again. And I hope to see you again now very soon to go look for margays and oncillas, among other
things. Thank you. But, I hope so.
And one day, the bush dogs as well.
Oh, of course.
Yes.
Be still my heart. Yeah.
You've been listening to Mammal Watching with Charles Foley and Jon Hall. You can find other episodes at mammalwatching.com/podcast.